It's not about where you've been, it's about where you're going. It's not about what you've done, but what you will do. It's about passion, inspiration, motivation, grit, endurance, hard work, and the hustle. This is Extreme Hustle with Nery Junior.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Extreme Hustle Show podcast. Today, I am accompanied by a good friend of mine for many, many years, Paul Montelongo, or AKA URKS Design. Now, before we get into Paul, have a conversation with him, a little bit of bio about Paul. Paul's a digital artist living here in California. And I pulled this right from your website, brother. Having an appreciation for art at an early age, you could have always find him drawing. That's kind of the same background as me, Paul. I used to just draw all the time as a kid, specifically South Park characters. That was like that's how I started. In college, he was introduced to the concept of digital media with Photoshop 5.0. And for those that don't understand what that means, we're going to talk about what that means. All right. He spent the next 17 years as a freelance graphic designer, providing branding, logo development, and marketing for clients. In February of 2016, now married with 3 kids, Paul decided to take hold of his artistic passion and create for himself. Encouraged by his wife, he created his first series, Heart. Okay, his first creative piece in that series was called Red Heart. Would be the birth of his design style. Now, as a digital artist, he is thankful for the opportunity to create with the talent God has blessed him with. Taking on a nickname given growing up, URKS. Am I pronouncing that right, URKS?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Paul, as a digital artist, looks to make a name for himself among so many other talented artists. Paul, my friend, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on this. I saw that what you were planning on doing. I was like, oh my gosh, here it comes. Dude, you're always doing something new, which is great. You know, I love following you on social media, dude. You give out a lot of great stuff. And I even follow a lot of the insights that you give, because you know it's like as long as I've been doing some of the stuff, there's some stuff that I don't know. Right. And when you touch on some of the stuff, it's nice to get like a little refresher.
Oh man, I appreciate that, dude. And that's kind of how it is, right? Like we just kind of bounce inspiration off of each other. Like I tell a lot of people, I talk about you a lot actually to my students, which is you probably don't know about. I think I emailed you. Messaged you a few times about it. I talk about you with my students at College of the Canyons. I'm like, yeah, dude, my friend Paul, great designer, because I put designers on a pedestal, and you're one of those designers that I put on the pedestal, buddy. Because I'm like, I'm nothing. I told them when it comes to design, dude, I follow the basics. Paul is on another level. Follow my friend Paul, and then you're gonna see what it is. And the reason I say that is because it always comes up when we're talking about organizing your layers in Photoshop.
Oh man.
Okay, yeah. So for those that don't understand what that means, when you're in the software Photoshop, there's something called layers, and that's how we stack a design. It's called layers. Sometimes when you do a very intricate design, you have many, many layers, and you have to organize them inside of folders. And I said, nobody's better than that. To my students, nobody's better than that than Paul, because as you can see from his designs in the background right there, those designs have multiple layers that have to be very well organized. And I always bring that example back to you, bud, when I talk to my students.
I know it's funny. I didn't realize how other designers appreciate stuff like that until I actually started like working with other designers. Like we would collaborate on stuff, and I would send a file. There's a guy that great friends now. His name's Nick. He does a lot of Premiere Pro stuff, digital stuff, and we were working on a project, and I sent him a file.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, dude, I like the way you're all organized. You have the folders, because I actually have a main folder for like a subject, and then I have subfolders for other things. So this way, if I'm creating, you know, let's take her for example, I just have the head in one folder, but I have all the layers, and I have them named. So this way, that it's not just layer one copy. So any advice to designers out there, name your layers. It will help you out, because layer one and layer one copy. It's like,
no, that's never gonna work. And for those that don't have a visual of that, if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching this episode, I'll put on top of us how that looks, a screenshot of some of Paul's layers. I think I'll pull it from your Instagram. I believe you posted it one time.
Yeah, I got a lot of people blown away. They're like, oh my gosh. And it's gotten to a point where I can't save some of my work because it'll say that it exceeds the memory.
Oh,
so I actually have to go and flatten some of the stuff that I know. Okay, I'm never gonna change this, so I'll flatten it so this way I have enough room. So
I've never had that problem, so that means that I'm not working deep enough. I'm not working deep enough like you, man. So, Paul, I kind of want to get into your history, brother. So, for those that are kind of listening to what we're saying, so we have a history, so we're bouncing back and forth. But Paul is an awesome designer and artist that I've known for a very long time, and we'll get to the history of how I know Paul. But first, I want Paul to give us his history. So, Paul, how did you get started in your industry of design and artistry and all that stuff?
Well, for art, I always had a background in art. I thought I was going to be an illustrator for comics. That was the whole idea growing up, was I'm going to be an artist for comics and stuff. But like you touched on the bio that I put in, I got introduced to digital media in college in Rio Hondo, over in Whittier. Okay. And actually the first program that I started dabbling with was Painter.
Oh wow.
So I took Painter, and then the next thing was a Photoshop class that I had a professor, Dale Harvey. Because of him is kind of the reason why I started doing like freelance stuff. I started doing more digital, mess around with the Photoshop and what you could be able to do with it. Illustrator, not so much, because I didn't know the ins and outs, but for Photoshop and Painter were the two things I kind of like really was really attracted to. He kind of liked the way I was already implementing some of like photography into Photoshop, not just straight up creating stuff with Photoshop as a blank canvas, but actually importing stuff and messing around when tweaking. And I would ask a lot of questions. And I had another teacher, his name was Chris, and it got to the point where I was asking too many questions. He actually gave me the teacher's handbook, and he goes, here. Because some of the stuff I wanted to do, I didn't know how to do it. And back then, I didn't have a computer, so over at Rio Hondo, the only time I had access to it was when I was in class, and got to a point where I actually dropped 2 classes, and I would just go in, stay in the back, and just like mess around. Just mess around. And then one of the great things was my professor Dale. We had a critique session, and I half-assed a project. I know I did. It's like it didn't even get done, and I just half-assed it. He knew I half-assed it, but everyone else around there, the students, everything, were going on critiquing, and he was looking at it, and then they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, it's good." And he started clapping. He literally looked at them and goes, "Stop clapping for him."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, he goes, he could do better. And you know that too. And right there, it kind of made me. Right there, it was kind of like a switch. Kind of like, you know what? Someone sees potential in what I'm able to do with this. Maybe there's something, I could do. And from there, I just, I took up a side gig that he recommended for a boat company that does lining for the inside of boats.
Okay.
And they needed a brochure, something, I can't remember what it was. But they reached out, and he said, make sure they pay you. Don't tell them that you want to do it for credit or recognition. Right. Tell them you're an artist, you're a designer, you have bills you need to pay, or student loans.
For sure. Well, I think that's let me pause you right there, and then we'll go back.
No.
I think there's an important lesson right there. Yesterday, I was speaking to another guest about the importance of mentorship and the importance of having someone that kind of pushes you and inspires you to think a little bit further and go beyond, and someone that teaches you. Now, for everyone, that could be different, right? It could be a mentor, right? It could be your boss. So for some people, a boss could be it. Or for some people, it's a professor. You know what I mean? That really inspires you and tells you, hey, make sure you do this. Or sometimes you need the hard truth, right? Like you know what, you could do a little bit better. You could push a little bit further. And I guess we call it tough love, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if I say, okay, you're good, okay, you keep going through your through life a little bit mediocre. So someone needs to push us. So I think there's a lesson right there. If you're trying to understand where to go, seek a mentor, seek someone that you're going to learn from, and get counsel, guidance. Maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a youth pastor, maybe it's your dad, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's an older relative, someone that's going to instill some values in you. Because and this is mainly for the younger folk that I'm talking to here. That's like, if I could go back, I would seek mentors earlier. You know what I mean? I would have seek mentors when I was a teenager. Now I was blessed to have many mentors, right? Like pastors, musicians, because I grew up in the musician world, that said, don't do this. Hey, make sure to take care of this, you know? And I remember, like, for some reason it comes to my mind, my pastor's old quote, hey, when you fall in love, make sure you fall in love with your heart. Yes. But also your mind, you know what I mean? So that's to think beyond just puppy love, you know what I mean? So, but it's these guidances. So I think that it's very cool that you touch on that, because then he gave you another very important lesson. Make sure you get paid.
Yeah.
For what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's one of the things that I learned. Well, when you're young and you just worry about yourself, again, it depends on the mindset of each person, because there's some people that are young and they're go-getters already. They're already thinking, you know, ahead, you know, 10 years. Okay, I'm going to start saving up my nuts to buy a house or buy a car or whatever it is. But for me, growing up and doing graphic design in the very beginning, when people go, oh, you know how to do this. Hey, first was party flyers. Back in the you know, in the 90s and the early 2000s, everyone's like, oh, dude, you do a club flyer? Dude, I'll get you in.
Club flyer.
Oh man, that was like,
exactly.
Okay, give me drink tickets.
Design was access for me back in the day.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? That way, it was like an exchange. Like, we used to barter, but for design, because every business back then needed a lot of design and stuff, and even just like in the musician world, you know what I mean? Because I was in the musician world for a long time. Like, hey, design my CD cover, and you could come tour with us, kind of a thing. You know, I'm like, deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that doesn't feed you, though.
No, yeah, and then it got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm driving to those places, but I need to put gas in my car.
Gas in there, yeah, exactly.
It's like, dude, after the club, it's cool, but you know, I want to go get something to eat. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, but yeah, that was one of the things that I learned after, was make sure you get paid for it, because not everyone can do it. Right. And the other thing too was kind of like it's easy to say it now, but before, when I was starting out with the graphic designing, and I partnered up with 2 other buddies, and we started our own our design company. We were taking any job, right? And now I'm at the point where I get to choose my clients. Correct. Because before, when you're just like starving, you're just taking anything, and if someone goes, oh, I'm going to go with you, but then all of a sudden they're like, well, you know, so-and-so could do it cheaper. Right. And you're like, okay, I'll do it. Or the worst thing is, like, I hate when people would say, oh, my nephew does this. So it kind of like belittles it, kind of like, oh, you're a designer? Oh, I have Photoshop too. That's cute. Yeah. I forgot who said it, but I always used that quote that someone said. It was like, just because you have tools in your garage doesn't make you a mechanic. The same way, if you cook at home doesn't make you a chef. Yeah, dude, I have a line too. I says, just because I have a stethoscope doesn't make me a doctor. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a and that was the other thing too. I don't think I ever told you this, but one time it was me and my buddy. We went to go meet a client in Pasadena, a nice office and everything. And this guy, he does, I guess he was doing building renovations.
Okay.
I guess I forgot what it was. We didn't get too much into it because halfway in, he's like, "Oh, you know what? Stop, never mind. I thought you guys were different designers." And right there, it's kind of like soul crushing. It's kind of like, well, we were doing stuff already with clients. We had certain clients already, but the whole thing was, it was like kind of like print and design hand in hand together. And, we're like, okay. But then when we got there, it kind of made me think, okay, well, what type of design do I want to be?
Right.
Do I want to be, actually providing actual design that someone will sit with me and will create from the ground up? Or is it just going to be a cookie cutter stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like that, it made me think like, okay, moving forward, what do I want to have my work be represented by?
Right. Exactly.
So from there, that was kind of like that whole turning point for me as a designer, kind of like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to provide designing. If you want printing, you know what? Hey, I know there's printers all over the place, go find them. But what you're coming to me for is design.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things that us as the other designers out there is like, we provide something that other people can't.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
it's a whole other skill set that people don't understand, and that's why I always believe that you have to educate your audience. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so thank God that we're living in a time where it's more accessible to educate our audience by putting out content on Instagram, Facebook, and all these platforms that say, hey, this is what it takes to do design. This is what it takes. And one thing that they end up learning is that once they go a different route or a cheaper route, quote unquote, quality suffers, integrity suffers. And then they get a logo that 10 other people have.
Yeah.
Because they grabbed it from stock imaging or something, or copied a logo, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what ends up happening, because you know what? Bobby, your nephew, is really good at copying images and cleaning them up in Photoshop. Doesn't make him a designer, you know what I mean?
No. Yeah. It's always funny too, because it's like was it that I forgot what it's like that three things that's cheap, fast, and good. Mm-hmm. It's like you only could pick two,
right? So
I don't want it. I want it cheap and I want it fast, but it's not going to be good.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I want it good and fast, but it's not going to be cheap. Right. So that was kind of like
we ain't hookers, huh, brother?
No, it's like no. It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no.
That, definitely, I feel you, man. And that's why I had to make a decision even in my own agency, because we shifted from doing print and all that kind of stuff to doing more digital marketing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I remember. I think I told you when you started going off on your own,
right?
I think I told you one of the things is like, make sure you keep it separate.
Yes.
Design and printing, they are not merged together.
They're not the same.
Two separate services.
Okay, so that's another conversation right there. So let's circle back. Let me put a pin in that conversation, because Paul was one of the first guys that kind of inspired me to venture off on my own. When I was working at a print shop, Paul inspired me and says, hey, once you do it on your own, this and that. And I remember the day when I told you that I quit. And I don't know if you remember this, we went to go have lunch at Chipotle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we had a whole conversation about the whole thing. You gave me some pointers, so I'm always appreciative of that. But I remember you told me that I separated, and it was hard at first to separate it, right? Because like you said, because when you're hungry and then someone comes to you, hey, I'll give you $50 for a set of business cards. Well, that's going to fill up my tank.
Yeah.
That's going to do this, but the problem is with that is that sometimes you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's hard to divide that, to understand that you have more value, and that you could provide, because you could provide more value, you're more valuable. And
Yeah.
once you're more valuable, you require a higher monetization. And it was hard for me to, so I ended up separating the print from what we were doing digital marketing. So now 7FX, my company is just branding, digital, everything that has to do with branding you, marketing your company, and that's what we niche down on. And now we have a separate company with my girlfriend that just focuses on print.
Oh,
Like,
see,
it's its own thing, right? It's more of a print shop mentality with that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But never kissing the two, because I can't sell you $65 business cards and a $3,000 website. It's just not gonna, they're not the same.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No. Yeah. It's funny because that's exactly where you came from, was where I started from too, for the whole printing, the whole industry and everything, and doing marketing and stuff. Right. When I got a job at this place in Monterey Park for a couple of years, I was working there, and it was a print shop.
Right.
And I'm the designer, and then I would have, from there, it taught me how to get tough skin from angry clients and doing sit downs.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing. It's like I love and hate it, was the fact that having to sit down, because it gave me that pressure. I have to design with that guy standing there. Dude, change this, change that.
I remember that.
Oh my gosh, I don't do that anymore at all.
No.
But
I forgot where, I don't know if it was you or I believe it was someone like you, because I remember many times you would come into the print shop and inspire me numerous times, and it was like, yeah, no, you can't design with someone on top of you like that.
No,
because they would come in all the time, right? And they would
and I
move this to the right.
Yeah, no, and that was the one thing too, is kind of like you're providing a service. And even when I was freelancing with other people that brought on clients, it would get me upset sometimes, because the person that brought me on, they knew what I could do, but since it's their client, they would do the sitting in on their behalf. And it was kind of like, your client hired you for a reason to do a brochure, let's just say. They came to you because they know that you're going to provide something great. Don't just make these stuff just to please them, as far as like, oh, I want blue on green. It's like, artistically, that's not going to work. And a lot of stuff like, no, I want it to look on this picture. You want to do this. It's like this. I already know, as an artist and the designer, and doing this a couple of years now, what's going to work and what's not going to work. And what's kind of, and the thing is that if you stand your ground to a client, just kind of like, tell, you know what, let me work on this. This is not going to work on this. You're just explain it to them. But if you're just going to appease them, oh, let me just do it.
Right.
And it's just gonna be a long process, and it's gonna be like, oh, well, you know what? Try this. If not, no, try. Then it's like, then you're not designing. They are.
Exactly. And that's the thing, because they don't know how to design. That process takes forever. You know what I mean? So what a lot of people don't understand, and hopefully we could educate some of the audience today that are not designers, because I know I know I am gonna have some designers listening in, because I have a lot of students that are graphic designers that are gonna listen to this and be inspired. And what's up, guys? I hope you guys get inspired by this. But for those that are not designers, when we go to school for design, when we learn design, there are certain things that we learn that makes us designers. For example, we learn color theory. Okay, we learn how color works. We learn what's called the color wheel, and what colors don't go. And we learn that there are color schemes that we need to kind of stick with in order to create a cohesive design, whether it be a split design, complementary color, analogous, triadic, whatever the color scheme is, we pick a color scheme. 2, we learn typography. Typography is another art form in itself. And I remember, actually, you were one of the first ones that showed me how type could be cool, man. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to learn cleaner typography. You know what I mean? Because I remember when you used to set up business cards and send them to me, I'm like, man, this is, I don't get what he's doing, but this looks better than mine. You know what I mean? Until I took a typography class that taught me those skills. Well, this is why type exists, and you use this typeface for this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
There's a serif typeface, sans serif typeface, decorative, and so on. So we learn those skills, and then we also learn what's called graphic design hierarchy. Okay, and the hierarchy is very important. We place this, and then this, and then this, and then this. So because our eye follows a certain motion of the design, and then we learn how to design in a grid. And so there's so many things that we learn how to do that make us designers, and that's why people pay us to design. You know what I mean? So it's not just something that, oh, you know how to do computer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like this joke that I say, if you ask my mom what I do for a living, she would just say he does the internet. You know what I mean? He's in the internet. That's what he does for a living. You know,
you get those family members. Hey, something's wrong with my computer.
You're not
I work with a computer. I don't work on
the computer, right? Exactly. So I'm like, there's a huge difference. And just coincidentally, I was in the IT world for a little bit, but you know what I mean? Yeah, no, that doesn't mean I could take apart your computer and this whole thing. It's so funny. But you know, it's like my parents, right? They swear I'm the IT director of the family, you know, because they're like, hey, my computer, Zoom's not working.
Yeah.
Or like, this is not printing. And I'm like, it's off.
Yeah.
How'd
you do that?
How'd you do that?
I followed the instructions.
What you do? Dad, it was off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plug it in.
Oh,
you know? But it's so funny. But yeah, so going back, so we have a certain skill set. Designers have a certain skill set. And that's why people, and that's why I think students sometimes struggle with even how to price themselves.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because they're like, well, I'm not Paul Rand. You know what I mean? I'm not designing for Steve Jobs, so I can't request $100,000 for a logo or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And I get that.
Yeah.
You know, I obviously am not there, but there's like that big divide in like a certain designer's start point where they're like, well, I think I'm only worth like $12 an hour. When you're like, well, you know what? No, even if you're a junior graphic designer, your start off mentality should be $25, $30 an hour.
Actually, it's funny. You're talking about hourly. I actually stopped doing hourly.
Right.
Yeah. I just do per project now.
Per project.
Because just like, since I know you have some other students probably going to be listening.
Yeah.
When you do it hourly, sometimes it kind of like gets you stuck for clients, because it's like, if I'm going to be paid hourly, let's say $45,
right? Then
the person that's hiring on, they're going to go, okay, if you finish this within this certain amount of time, you know, you're cheaping yourself. Let's say you did a logo, right? Yeah. And they go, I'm going to charge you $45 an hour, and you just happen to bust it out in an hour.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of, you get to rationalize like that. It's like a brochure design, you know, it's a whole thing. It's because all the stuff that you learn to do, you know, you're able to condense in a shorter amount of time. Doesn't mean that you're worth less. You know what I mean?
You know the production a little better.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. Like if someone told you, hey, bust out a business card, I'm pretty sure you could bust it out a nice 3 different sets of the designs in an hour.
Right. Yeah.
But it shouldn't mean that you should be paid less for it.
Exactly.
It's because it took you, you know, a year to figure out how to make everything down. And that's kind of like what you're going to want to sell yourself. And in this whole niche right now, where everyone's working from home and there's a lot of designers out there that are saying they could do this better. What you really want to do is kind of like sell you. Like, so when someone hires me, they're not just hiring a designer, they're hiring Paul. Why? Because they know the work that I do, not what I've designed in the past, but what the work I could do. And they know that, oh, I've had last minute edits and stuff, dude. I know he's gonna bust them out for me. Oh, it's 2:00 in the morning. You know what? Let me send this email. hey, oh my gosh, you replied back. It's 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what you need to do as designers now is kind of like, you're the brand, they're hiring you. Of course, it could be easy to go find someone cheaper, but once you start positioning yourself like the value of what you are bringing as an individual, as a separate designer, it's gonna be a good payoff, because that's kind of like the scary thing is like hourly. That's why I was getting kind of like tripping over my own ego type of thing. Like, well, this guy's getting paid X amount, and I was feeling kind of bad, kind of like, well, I'm able to finish this under an hour. You know, do I drag my feet and not give it to him on time? You know,
or
so
lose
like
integrity and say you did it in 5 hours.
Yeah, and so that was the whole thing too. So that was like kind of like, it made sense of kind of like, oh, okay. It's like, just, you know, when you go to a doctor's, you know, they perform a surgery, it's like, dude, it's like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
It's like, but it was only 5 minutes or
You
whatever.
removed one thing from my arm. Yeah.
It's like, there, $10,000. Like, what?
Well, it's like I heard on a podcast not that long ago. It's like there was something wrong on a submarine. Okay, there was something wrong in a submarine, a military submarine, and they send this guy down. Like, you need to fix it, right? It's a huge problem. He goes to the submarine, taps one thing, and then he taps one thing, and it's fixed. And he invoiced the government for $1 million. All right. And he's like, how can, there's no way that your invoice, it took you, it was one tap. It was one tap, you know what I mean, that you did. How are you going to charge us $1 million on your invoice? He redid his invoice. He said, okay, tap was $1. Knowing where to tap, $999,999. You know what I mean?
Exactly. No,
it's the knowledge that they're paying for. It's not that you're able to do that production at that time. Because I think there's a big difference, and I learned this a while ago. There's a big difference between a designer, right, and just a production person.
Yeah.
You know, because there's some guys that are like paid just to do production. And those are the guys that how we started in the print shops and at the FedEx office, at Staples, where they're just pumping out production, not caring about how really it looks, because we're going to be transparent. They don't care how it looks. They just care about pumping out the volume that they're pumping out. But designers go a little bit further, and they care about the design they're actually creating. Because for us, even a business card is a piece of art.
Oh, yeah.
In our minds, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Like the way I approach, that's why a lot of people, I have a lot of clients that come back or new clients that are referrals. The main thing that's different for me, the way I take on each client, is if it's my business. So even if it's just like a gardening service.
Yeah.
I did a business card for a guy. He's doing a gardening service. He didn't have any stuff, and he wanted business cards. I did a business card. I guess I don't know if it's called a backhanded compliment, but he's like, oh, this is too nice. You know what I mean? It's like, kind of like, I was like, thank you. But it's that mindset as designers, and any young person out there, the best advice I could give you is take on any project as if it's your own business that you're starting. Yes. It doesn't matter what it is, even if it's just grooming for dogs. You know, make sure
invest yourself in that business. Yeah,
it's like it's gonna be the badass business card for grooming anyone's ever seen. And the other thing too, I want to give advice is how you were touching on about production.
Yeah.
If a client comes to you and draws a little squivel and tells you, here,
this is what I want.
I want it to look like this. Do not copy exactly what it is, because in reality, what you want is that you want to take that and go beyond. So this way, the client will be like, oh my gosh, this is better than what I imagined.
Well, yeah,
because that's really what they're hiring to do, and I can guarantee they're going to keep coming back if you give that. Because if you just do the same thing, because again, I have other buddies that just like that. Oh no, they want it exactly like this. They just want it exactly like this. I already know that when you talk to this guy, you were just pandering to them. They're like, oh dude, no, they're gonna pay me money. I need to keep it like this. I can't change nothing. Right. It's like, and I even did this a couple times. I did their shitty version, and I go, here's my version. show them, and if they like their version better than my version, dude, I'm not gonna charge you.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, it's a learning.
I haven't had to pay anyone as of yet,
and that's never
happened. Wood,
yeah,
but
exactly.
Because that's the whole thing is too. As designers, the whole thing is that we're taking an idea and we're elevating.
Mm-hmm.
We're not. That's the whole reason why they're hiring it, because they don't know how to do it. The same
Exactly.
way, it's like, what I mean? It's like, come on, man. It's like interior designing too. I don't know how to do that, but that's why I would hire someone to come in. And
even though we're graphic designers, we don't know interior design. There's a difference.
Oh no, yeah.
They know the fabrics.
Yeah.
They know, you know what I mean. They know different things, and it's the same thing with kind of anything. Even when you get a little bit more when it comes to web design, you know what I mean. When it comes to SEO, even for marketing purposes, you pay experts that know SEO because they know SEO.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you pay people that do web design because they know web design. And then there's guys that just focus on app design, like for your apps. I don't know how to do that. You know what I mean? But so I'm gonna leave the people that do apps on their lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. Because if you start doing becoming like a jack of all trades, it's kind of like, but it's as designers, it's good to kind of know certain things, just start dabbling. Only because this way you have appreciation. So this when you collaborate with other people, you kind of like know, and there's not expectations, especially when it comes to web design. I started doing it myself only because I couldn't lock down good designers. So I was trying to figure out, dude, how come it's taking forever to do this, that? And then once I finally started doing it myself, I'm like, oh, okay. But then too, on the upside, I was able to see, okay, dude,
yeah,
this guy's dragging his feet.
Yeah, this guy's full of crap. Yeah.
But no, it gives you appreciation for what other people could do, like After Effects and stuff like that. That's what it's like, dude. I know, so and so, they're the best at it. I could collaborate with them on a project. Like how you were saying, SEO stuff. It's like, dude, you have a nice looking website, but if there's no back end data,
and traffic
pushing it, it's like it's like a nice car with no engine.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. It's just nobody's gonna see it. You know what I mean? It's in your
it's like,
that's the way I always say. Hey, and for you guys that need some SEO out there, let me know what's up. But I feel you, man. Hey, let me ask you, man. So this past year was pretty gnarly for all of us, the whole COVID thing. And how did it affect your business and what you do? Were you still able to do your thing, or how did it go this past year for you?
Well, luckily, before this whole pandemic hit, I already made that transition from going out and networking and doing the whole client run thing. I only had to select a few people, which was great. I currently work for a real estate company in Whittier. It's all virtual. And then I'm working for 2 other brands. I do their marketing and their social media stuff. And because of that, it's helped me to pick up other clients that are referred by people that I know aren't going to nickel and dime me. So which is great. But yeah, that's kept me afloat, and then kind of like reevaluate myself as an actual artist, because that was the whole thing why I stopped doing the whole networking and my whole company that I had before. I stopped it because I wanted to just focus on myself as an artist. It kind of made me think about the way I'm marketing for my clients. I need to do that for myself as a digital artist. So it's been a learning curve for myself when it comes to that. But as far as like staying afloat, luckily I established kind of like the people that I want to take on as clients. So I'm not out there, whoring myself out.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Hey, you want a business card?
And that's how we all start, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So actually this tell me about this, because I remember this popped into my mind and I have as a question here. And I think this is kind of inspirational to maybe the students out here. I remember you did a design for was it package design for Kim Kardashian?
Oh yeah, the Kardashians, yeah.
Yeah, so tell me that story, because I think that's probably a cool story to let people know about.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I did I did because it was funny. The client I had, I already did stuff for them in the past.
Mhm.
So they just end up doing something else. And lo and behold, it was the Kardashians were going to be the spokesperson.
Oh, okay.
And Kim was going to do her own home cupcake thing
Home
because
company.
the company that was doing the stuff for it was for cupcakes. And on one of the things they were going to do a grand opening, and it was like a lot of people were going to be involved with the E Entertainment, and I guess they hired someone from E to do like an invitation. And then what happened was, I guess they weren't happy with it, and they hit me up, and I busted something out like in a couple days, and I sent them. And then one of the guys that was in the room, he was looking at the buddy that I know, and he kept on looking and goes, "Dude, they're talking or whatever." And then finally, when he left, I'm like, "Hey, what happened?" He goes, "The guy that they hired prior to do what you were doing, he spent like 2 months working on something and didn't even come close to what you did." And
Yeah.
to me, it was a good ego boost,
Right.
but then
Yeah.
it kind of like, it's like, all right, I don't let it get too much in my head. But that was the whole thing too. I want to be able to do is, as designers, put the best, because you never know who's going to see what
Exactly.
you do. And for me, that I think that was cool. And it was a shame that they're no longer in business or anything. But
Yeah.
I did a lot of cool stuff with them. I think I still have her can somewhere. But yeah, she took a picture with it and everything. And a lot of people were like all impressed, like, "Oh, you did something for
Ooh.
Kardashian."
Kardashian.
Yeah, he's the Kardashians, So
Well, that's
yeah,
but those are cool projects because you have them in your like repertoire of things that
oh
you
yeah,
I mean, like I remember when I have a few things that for example, one that I always brag about to this day, and people are gonna laugh, people that know, I did a logo design for Chuck Norris.
dude. You can brag all you want.
You know what I mean?
Come on, man.
To this day, that's still huge. And shout out to my professor, David Dunn, at Premier Martial Arts here in Santa Clarita for connecting that. But yeah, so I still carry that badge. You know what I mean? Yeah, I did that. But I think that's cool things, little badges to have in our armor here. You know what I mean? Our suits, to say that we were able to do that, because it's pretty inspiring, and it could be pretty inspiring to other people too, which is kind of also the point, to kind of leave legacy, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I remember when you showed me that I remember when you were doing that, because I was around the Postnet time.
Yeah,
that I was at Postnet, and I remember you showed me. I was like, okay, so talk about inspiration, right, guys? Because I was a production designer at a print shop, Postnet, right? And Paul's like, "Yeah, I'm designing for Kim Kardashian." I'm like, "Oh God." I'm over here making dollars an hour, you know what I mean? And this guy is living the dream, you know what I mean? So, but it's funny how you could always inspire people to do that. Which reminds me, this is a story that I always remember about you, Paul, and I want the audience to hear it, which I think is pretty funny, and it shows, it goes to Paul's character of like coolness and love that Paul has. And you know where I'm going with this one? I think so. One time when I was at this print shop, the boss of the print shop was like, "Hey, I forgot what the story was, but he's like, I'm not gonna be here for like a day or a few days or something. I think he was on vacation or something, or he was out of town. I need you to man the print shop by yourself." Because it was like him and I, like, so you're gonna be by yourself, and you're gonna do it. And back then I was, young, dumb, and I never began anything with the end in mind as I do now, Reimer. I don't prepare for things. So I remember I'm like, okay, we had to open at 9 and we're going to close at 5 or 6. And I didn't take lunch that day. You know what I mean? I didn't take lunch. And then I remember I put out a distress call on Facebook. and I still have it and it popped out in my memories actually a few days ago. And let's see if I could find it. I'll screenshot it and I'll put it up. But I was like, man, it sucks. I'm stuck here at the freaking print shop all day, and I forgot to bring lunch, and this sucks, and I'm freaking starving. And then Paul goes, and I said, "Someone bring me in and out." And then Paul wrote something like, "I got you," or something like that. Lo and behold, Paul shows up with the little beautiful box of In and Out to get me through the day. And it kind of shows you how that's kind of Paul's character. So I still appreciate that to this day, dude. People don't forget. So that's another thing, you guys. People don't forget these little details that you do for them. So even if it's something as small as buying someone a hamburger or buying someone a drink, people remember everything that you do. So always do kind things. That's what I always do, kind things. You know what I mean? If it costs you $1, to buy someone a water or something, believe me, people remember these things. So always try to do good things. But I want to bring that story up because I thought it was friends bring friends in and out. You know what I mean?
That's right.
One of the questions that I have here, brother. So in everything that we do, when I talk to even my first guy, Joe Hansen, we talk about success, we talk about making it, we talk about all that, but we never really talk about our failures and too much. So if you're confident or if you're cool, what do you think was your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
I want to say the biggest failure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I know there could be many hiccups, you know what I mean, in what we do, but because I have many that I could go through. But what's one that kind of sticks with you, that kind of like that says that's not going to happen again, kind of a thing,
It's actually goes back to that little story I was telling you about that client I had in Pasadena.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay.
To go back, me and my buddy, we just left that print shop we were working at. We became friends there, and we were the designers for this print house, because people would come in, hey, I need 5,000 business cards, I need 5,000 brochures, blah blah blah. And we're like realizing kind of like, dude, anyone could get stuff printed, but it's the design, the reason why they're coming back. I'm like, dude, right, we're valued. So that's when we started our own thing. We're like, you know what, let's start our own business, our own design studio.
Yeah,
the two of us.
Yeah.
And then we had our third buddy join in. But when we got a referral from another client who was a title rep, and we were doing stuff for them, doing door hangers and brochures and this and that. And he goes, I have a client for you. So we went and met with them, and we went over there. It was in Pasadena, and nice office and everything. We sat down, we were talking with them, and we're like, oh, how can we help you? As far as like, we're thinking, okay, we could get you 5,000, mailers for you and this and that. And he's like, oh, well, I want to do a campaign for this new project I'm rolling out, and I think it might be different sizes that, so what do you think it's going to be? And we didn't have anything written out or nothing. So we're just there looking, we had samples. We're like, oh, this is a sample. He's like, you know what? This is not going to work, because I think there's a kind of miscommunication. And right there, it kind of like, over here, I'm thinking we're doing well already, where we have a couple clients that are regulars, and with this guy, it's kind of like, you guys aren't really designers. Basically, that's what he said. Yeah, like you guys are really designers.
Yeah.
He didn't say I'll come on set, but that's what I found. Like, so when he came back, and that's what I told my buddy, you know what? I think we have to rethink the way moving forward, what we want to be.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing for me right then and there. I was like, okay, am I going to be a cookie cutter designer or an actual designer that's going to provide something? It's like, it's great, because during that time too was when the real estate market was like booming. Right. And we had a lot of offices, and we already had templates for these brokers, for their agents. All they had to do was go, I want this. Right. Boom. We sent out. But I was thinking, you know what? This is not always going to be this case.
Right.
Someone's going to need actual creative design stuff from scratch. And are they going to want to pay for it? Because some right there, no offense to the realtors out there, but some of them, they're cheap. You know what I mean?
Oh,
they're tight on money. It was funny. I've always had that joke with a lot of brokers I became friends with, and I know them really well. So I would joke with them when they give me checks. I'm like, they'll throw on the floor to see if it bounces. And they're like, oh man, where's it go there? But anyways, no. But it was all on jest. But truthfully though, it was kind of like, okay, realtor and the real estate market is not always going to be like this.
Right.
You know, so I'm like, okay, well, who am I going to look for? And that was kind of made me restructure the way I was thinking. Okay, you know what? I want to focus on the startup to the mid-sized businesses who really need marketing, and I have to tell them why they need it. You know what I mean? It's like there's one reason to say, oh, you need a business card, but what's the reason for it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And even talking with them too, and say, because sometimes I'll have someone that wanted to spend a lot of money, all this money, then, well, I need hangers, I need a brochure, I need this mailer. And I was talking to them, well, what is that you need to want to do as far as like focusing, and who are you targeting? And then talking with them and giving insight, I go, well, you know what? What's your budget? And that's when I started talking to them and started seeing more of like, how can I actually help them so this relationship could be a long-term relationship, not just a short one.
Right. And that's providing the value right there, because sometimes, especially when we're doing a lot more printing and stuff, we would get clients that were like, okay, we need this flyer for this flyer, this size, and we need card magnets. And then you start questioning, like, you kind of don't need that. Yeah, it's cool for my pockets that you're ordering all this product, but you don't really need it, because then they have a stockpile of print in their garage.
Yeah.
Then did you really provide value, or did you just make yourself some money?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things too. Going back was a kind of like, and it's guys like the whole thing is like reinvesting. It's like kind of like, okay, you know, even though I turned this job down, I told him, you know what, it's not for me. You know, I could refer you to someone else that could do it for lesser. And I've done that a few times, and sure enough, they'll come back to me and go, hey, Paul,
yeah, that's the story.
I went with my nephew, or I went with my business partner. And that's kind of like the tough thing of when, especially when business partners are involved, any two or three, that's always a thing. It's like, oh, well, Jeff over here said his nephew could do it, or his niece just graduated and it's like, and then after that, can you give me a deal? You know, I just spent this money on such and such. It's like, oh man, come on.
Del Taco, buddy.
Yeah.
Or the famous one where they go, my wife. You know, I spoke to my wife and she said this. I'm like, oh God, there you go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
So what advice, and I know you've given so much advice just on this episode to a lot of designers, but if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, and in this case, let's talk to some of probably my students that are tuning in. What advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? Because believe it or not, there are still a lot of people very interested in what we do in design and marketing. I mean, I see it every week because, like I said, I teach here at the college, and I have a room full of aspiring kids that are anxious about design. You know what I mean? And love the concept still. So it's still, thank God, an art form that's still kind of like kicking and creating buzz. But what advice would you give kind of a young designer, college designer, or your younger self?
Honestly, it would just be keep doing it. Keep doing it. Don't stop learning. Just now, I'm as even though I'm a veteran in Photoshop, and I could say that confidently. Yeah. But there's some stuff I'm learning. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know it did this.
Right.
So now,
especially because Adobe's always upgrading.
Oh yeah. And it's funny too. Even though there's a lot of apps out there that do a lot of stuff for you, learn how to do it.
Yes.
Like animation. Like I'm starting to post a lot of stuff on my Instagram now with my artwork and doing animation. Instead of doing an app and just doing it, I'm learning how to do it from scratch through After Effects and Premiere Pro. So this way I know how to do it, because this way, and also too, this way if you go, so and so could do it, or this app does it. I have a client that was like that. Oh, hey, check out this app, and I told them, well, you know what? The reason why it looks cool is because they're using great photos and great videos.
Right. That's
You
already
don't,
been
you know, not everyone has that. It's the same thing too. Like with that, was it Winks websites?
Wix, yeah.
Wix. There you go. I when people look at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, aren't you afraid? I'm like, no, because the people who have that, they're going to be calling me to do a website for them.
Yeah,
because if that's supposed to,
that's true.
If that's supposed to be easy for the Joe Schmo to be able to do it, and it's not, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in, I'm going to create something great for you. But as a designer, I know what needs to function correctly.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but as far as like advice going, again, like you were saying, just keep doing what you're doing. Don't stop. And also know your value.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, if I could go back and tell young Paul, hey, ask for an extra zero at the end of that invoice that you were giving. You know what I mean? It's, if they're gonna say no, but someone else is gonna say yes.
You're worth two burritos, not one.
Yeah. Because growing up and being in the design world, as long as I have been doing it and collaborating with other people, there's scamsters out there. And that was a whole thing too. What was kind of like, for me, it's like, truthfully, I could tell and say I never hustled anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I always was upfront with them, but it would get me upset that here I'm being honest with the client, and they'll say no to me for this X amount of dollars, but yet this guy blows smoke up their ass and they're willing to pay double it.
Right.
And not even give them close to what I was going to give them.
Right.
So, but that would be that kind of one of the things that, you know, even now, that's something still I need to start doing, because at the level I'm at, I should be charging X amount. But even then too, it's a whole thing. It's like, you just have to keep pushing and learning. Don't think that you know everything, because you could talk to other designers who are probably doing it longer than I have, and they're not even getting their worth. So I think that's kind of like something.
And I think my favorite part that you said, besides the value, which I think is very important, that I always try to my students, man, you got to understand your value, but is to really master the skill. Mm-hmm. Because yes, there's an app that could do it for you, but guess what? That app might get not funded next week and disappear. You know what I mean? And even Adobe.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, we could get great at Adobe, but what if Adobe disappeared next week? Would you still be a designer? So that's the interesting part, right? So that's what I tell my students. So what I'm trying to teach you, I tell my students, is how to design here, right? To understand hierarchy, to understand grid, color, and all that. That if Adobe were to disappear tomorrow and a client needed something next week, that you're able to jump on Microsoft Word and try to create something.
Oh yeah, I think that's
just understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too would always be like, challenge yourself. You know, like even like little side projects, like, you know, like college professors probably give you to do, like, you know,
right.
But like take some of the stuff and actually try to make it the best. Like even if you see something, try to figure out how did they do that. Like if there's a way, a magazine layout that you like the way it looks, you know, copy it.
Try to mimic it.
Kind of like mess around, you know, like deconstruct it. As designers, it's kind of like
kind of work backwards. Yeah.
Because like you said, you know, the app is not always going to be there, and not only that, it's like it's going to be better for you to actually understand how to do something correctly.
Right.
So this way, you're able to actually take some of the stuff and I guess exploit some of the things you're not supposed to do.
Right.
It's like, hey, that's not supposed to work in theory, but dude, you pulled it off. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's like everything it doesn't have to be aligned. And like you said, once you know how to do everything, like the grid system,
exactly.
Once you know how to do it and how it's supposed to be set up, then you're able to go in there and actually mess around with some of the stuff.
It's like my saying that I tell them a lot. It says, in order to think outside of the box, you have to know what's inside the box first.
Exactly.
Once you know what's inside the box, boom, the world is your oyster, kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's like a reason for the madness type of thing. It's like there's a reason. There's a reason why I didn't do it like this. And look, you're no, you're not following the rules. It's like, well, that's the whole thing. I learned all the rules, so I'm able to mess around with it.
And that's what art is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of design and art, right? That's the thing that's funny. 3 more questions and I'm gonna get you out of here, but I appreciate your time, man. 3 questions that I always ask at the end, or that I'm gonna be asking at the end. Who are the two people who have influenced you the most? 2 people that have, and it could be artists, it could be anyone. Who are 2 of the people that have influenced you the most, either in your life or your career, and kind of why?
Well, the first one is going to be my professor, Dale Harvey, from Rio Hondo. He's the one that pushed me, and it was kind of like that tough love. That's like I still bring it up. I still talk to other people when it drives to that story. It's like, for him to say that, it's how everyone, hey, don't clap for him.
Right.
He knows he could do it better. And then looking at him and just kind of like that disappointment. It's like, dude, I was expecting this to be wowed. And that's kind of, it's like, you know what? No, he did it for a reason. And he allowed me to actually go into the classroom and stay by myself sometimes, and be like, make sure you just lock the door. Don't let anyone else in, in between classes. And he really pushed me in being creative. And then the second one, it sounds cheesy, but my wife, she's always reminding me of the value that I bring to each job, and kind of like, hey, you should be charging a little bit more.
Right.
Or you're doing enough.
I want to get my nails done.
Yeah. Because that's the other thing too. It's like, as one, especially if it's something you love, I'm like, oh no, I could do something better. I could do, and that's like, hey, no. You've done enough. It's great. You're now you're giving them too much.
Yeah. Exactly,
so she kind of like balances me as far as like,
she's your base, right? That's awesome.
Yeah. So she's actually, and she's the main reason why I created all this stuff artistically, was her push and her support was telling me, you know what, you could do this, and you know what,
and talk about if you could talk about 2 minutes, that transition, because I know you're still doing graphic design and stuff, but there was a transition that you made. You said in 2016, from doing pure graphic design to what I consider digital art. And you guys, that's the paint. So you guys see paintings behind him, the three ladies. Those look like paintings. That's actually digitally created by Paul. Okay, so that's what I consider digital art, which is awesome. I think that's super, and he does beautiful work. Can you talk about that transition where you went from like a corporate design to like more artistry like this? Because growing up, that was the whole thing. That the whole mindset was, growing up, was I was going to be an illustrator for comics. But that's when, as soon as I got dragged into that whole digital world and Photoshop, and then realizing, hey, you could make money as a designer doing this and this and that. Well, I still had that, in the back of my head. I still draw with my hand, and but I was like, well, how can I combine the two? And I still remember doing some of the projects with Painter and Photoshop in the early years in college. I was like, well, I could add that to my stuff. And then seeing other digital artists out there, and that was kind of like the big thing for me, was like, I'm not an artist because I'm not painting, but not everyone could do it. And so taking photography and messing around with the creative imagination I had, and kind of like merging it together and creating the stuff I do now, it's been a joy. It sounds cheesy, but it's really been a I guess a joy for myself to be able to do it, and not only that, to be able to be recognized and appreciated by other artists, and patrons, and even new fan bases, and then also too, on top of that, to be able to get the credit from these other photographers that I follow, and other designers that I think that are up there, and they see my stuff and they're like, oh my gosh,
that's good, you know.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
To me, I still think, oh, dude, I'm not an artist yet. I haven't made it. But then, you know, we're our worst critics. But
We're
that
always
was one of the things too. Was I just took everything I learned for Photoshop and doing touch-ups for other people on their photos for realtors, you know.
Right. Exactly.
But and just mess around with it, just digging into what the possibilities of Photoshop could really do, you know.
Yeah.
And
Awesome. And you even opened my eyes, dude, to that possibility, man. Because that, dude, the work that you do there is super fantastic, and I can't even think of touching something like that or design or creating. So I'd rather just go on your website and buy it, which I still need to. I still need to fill up this space right here.
there you go.
Was actually one of the ones that I seen. Do you still have the Enforcer?
Oh yeah,
That was my favorite one. I just never grabbed it, but I like that one. I think that one's gonna go right here.
in fact, you know, well, 'cause I know I'm cleaning my office and everything. And some of the stuff I had when I did some shows, I was unpacking, and I noticed a lot of them were dented, so they're gonna go up. But yeah, you know, actually, you know what? I think this is. This is the one. This one, right?
There you go. That's right.
Yeah.
That one. I like that one. Yeah, that one's cool. I like it. It's futuristic, you know, and it's kind of like I don't know. It calls to me for some reason, so I want to on the next show I'm gonna have this up right here, buddy. So you just name your price, and I'll go grab that from you.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah. So where could people reach you, man, if they want to follow you, purchase your art, and all that stuff?
You could find me on Instagram. It's URKS Design, URKS Design. Same thing as for my website, urksdesign.com. I just revamped it too. I kind of tweaked it up a little bit, but yeah, you could go up there. You can follow me. I post on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And I'll do TikTok or Snapchat and all that stuff. You know, I just keep to the three basics. So
well, we'll talk about that later, brother. Let me let me give you some inspiration as a marketer, and then I'll show you how you could. I think your stuff would do really good on TikTok, actually.
Oh, okay.
And lastly, my friend, a question that I think is going to become the signature of the show. We've talked about design, we talked about art, but the cool thing that we talked about too with a lot of designers is like a thing that they don't want to touch is the finances of it, right? And I don't know why there's that separation, because people believe that if you're an artist, you're not supposed to talk about the business side of it. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think you've done a great job, and we've done a great job of being able to tie that artistry to the business side of it, which is what I like to call the hustle. So in your opinion, Paul, what does hustle mean to you?
Keep grinding. When someone else is sleeping, you're up working.
There you go.
You know, that's the whole thing. It's like, especially now, that's why I laugh now when people say, well, I have, you know, my nephew, you could do it. It's like, no, you can't.
No, you can't. Yeah.
You know, there's a reason why you're going to come back to me, because, you know, right. And I already built a reputation. It's like, dude, if I'm in a bind and someone messed up on dates that were supposed to go out, or a trade show was, you know, I missed out, dude, I need this by tomorrow, or I need this, and, you know, I have a presentation that's going to be, they know I'll come through. It's right. Almost like 95% of the time I'll be able to actually do some of the stuff and get it out to them on that urgent need, you know. And that's what sets me apart as far as like design goes, as far as like a designer. Mm-hmm. But you gotta hustle, you gotta want it.
Yes,
you know, because if you're just gonna be sleeping and binge watching, it's kind of like, well, it's
which could be easy to do in our positions.
Oh yeah. And that was one of the things too. I told someone that they were comparing, and it's easy to do that and complain. It's like, dude, why is this shitty designer why are they so popular, or why are they making so much money, or why are they so busy? It's like they're making more noise.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's always the same thing I've seen too. There's another guy that I was following for a while. he put out, it's like, was it hard work will always trump talent?
Yeah.
And that's always a scary thing. It's like, dude, you have a good talent. You're gifted. You have talent. But if you're not putting anything, behind it, it's just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I said it in the last episode actually, and this is a quote by Grant Cardone. He says, "Best known beats best service." Okay, and the reason that happens is because the more you're out there, people are going to know you more, and they're going to go with you just because of exposure.
Yeah,
that, boys and girls, is what we call marketing. All right. Yeah. So marketing. So imagine if now you had two powerful tools, which is your great talent and your marketing and your being best known, making the noise. And like in your words, that's what the hustle becomes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. That's and that's one of the things as an artist now, since it's kind of weird because I'm transitioning for myself now. I'm my client, yes, and I have to get myself as an artist. I need to start pushing myself out there more. So I haven't been really doing anything, but it's funny. I just wrote down some notes that I'm gonna start doing for myself as an artist to get more out there. Like, was it real quick? Sorry, being more organized. I have little notebooks or anything for myself, but no, I'm setting up for myself like tips and tricks Tuesday. What's up Wednesdays,
there you go.
Fun Fact Fridays, so it's like kind of like, and then taking up and that whole thing, like using up the resources that, social media is providing us, take advantage of all this little stuff, and like you mentioned right now with TikTok, it's like, but I know it'll benefit me the same way hashtags, people scoff at hashtags, but dude, they're beneficial.
Remember when hashtags started? We're like, oh, don't be putting hashtags.
Yeah, hashtags. Like, but now it's like, dude, it helps out.
Driver. Yeah.
No, but yeah, keep grinding, and you know what? That's the whole thing. The reason why someone else is gonna beat you is because
they're working.
You weren't hungry enough. And I think
they're working hard.
That's
It's like a quote that I always say, and I tell my dad all the time that when we talk about business, hey, it's either your kids eat or my kids eat. And I want my kids to eat. You know what I mean? Paul, man.
Exactly.
Paul, man, dude, I appreciate it, dude, man. I have much love for you, respect, admiration. You've always been inspiration for me, dude, as an artist and as a pal. And let's try to get together soon, man. Try to have a bite out there in the real world.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean? All right, cool. Paul, I appreciate it. For everyone, I'll make sure to link up all of Paul's stuff in the show notes or below, wherever you're watching this. I'm gonna make sure that his links are available so you guys could follow him. And as always, I say, let not your hearts be troubled, boys and girls. And until next time.